Lulu here. Who doesn't love when their favorite manga gets an anime adaptation, right? Today though, I thought I'd talk about manga that will never have an anime. Now, the reason I say never is simply because the manga I talk about were specifically designed for manga, or the creator has never been interested in receiving anime adaptations of this manga despite the popularity. That and manga that are literally impossible to animate due to the budget of most modern anime. I mean, I think most studios learned from Berserk's disastrous 3D anime, right? Alright, let's get started. Innocent by Sakamoto Shinichi. Despite being one of my favorite manga ever made, it's not a shocker that this series will never receive an anime adaptation. From Shinichi's gorgeous, highly detailed artwork to the visual structure, an anime adaptation is pretty much impossible. Not to mention Sakamoto Shinichi's work always has extremely surreal, with highly metaphorical scenes and panel structure, so I think putting this in an anime format where surreal storytelling is a lot harder to pull off successfully is kind of impossible. Obviously there are surreal anime, specifically the anime The Night is Short Walk On Girl comes to mind, because that was definitely a trip, but Shinichi's is a really particular kind. I mean, there's an entire scene in the manga where everyone at a party randomly turns into babies to show how childish and immature the nature of the upper class were during these parties. There's a whole ass musical number just to show the level at which Charles is being gosh damn dramatic. Then with Marie Antoinette, there's a scene where she's randomly scrolling on a cell phone as a metaphor that she'd be seen more as a modern day influencer like those on TikTok or Instagram to understand the level of pressure and reputation she was under. There is the violence and spicy material too, more so on the violence because it's pretty damn gory. I mean, this is a story of an executioner family, so of course we're gonna see super gory, violent deaths because that's how it was back then. The spicy material isn't anything crazy though if you've watched like Game of Thrones or something. Mainly just metaphorical imagery when it's used, to be honest, but there is a lot of boobies and peens, which I think most studios that aren't hentai would want to animate. Don't get me started, by the way, on DRCL Midnight Children. That one is even trippier, and even though I am very familiar now with Sakamoto Shinichi's work, that one is so trippy that I don't even know what's going on half the time. Still great though, but still. Don't let it having no anime stop you though. Seriously, please read this manga because it's fucking fantastic. It also recently received an official English translation by Dark Horse, so if you want to support the official release, now you can. Fruits Basket Another by Natsuki Takaya. While Fruits Basket recently had a gorgeous reboot that beautifully told the story of healing from abuse, love, and found family, I feel like the same really can't be said for its short sequel. It's not because there's anything complicated to animate here, but I feel like nothing happens in Fruits Basket Another. I'm not asking for a huge expansive storyline like the original, but this felt so short that I struggled to see how any studio could adapt this without being kind of boring to watch. Like, don't get me wrong, Sawa is a great protagonist to show that trauma still happens, even without a curse, but the new generation of Somas feel more like, here's to show that these characters in Fruits Basket boned and ended up together, which kind of feels like JK Turf Rowling territory to me. The most interesting part was the dynamic of Akito and Shigure-san Shiki and Sawa. As it's implied, they have a romance going on together, as well as Shiki is slightly traumatized due to Akito for some reason introducing her son to Ren, as if she learned absolutely nothing that her mom is murderous and insane, so she just casually thought it'd be a good idea to introduce her son. I don't know, that part felt weird to me, even though it's a nice foreshadow that generational trauma is a tough one to break, even when you think everything is healed. Then there's this whole thing where Sawa accidentally slipped down the stairs once coming out of her apartment as a kid, and Shiki witnessed it, and then Sawa's shitty mom blamed Shiki and tried to literally sue a little kid where Shigure had to pay her hush money or something. Again, super interesting, but I feel like that doesn't get resolved. Then there's just so many unanswered questions to me, like Momichi got to reunite and have a relationship with his sister Momo, which would imply that Momichi got to make amends with his mother, which would have been nice to see when Momichi was in a really shitty place at the end of Fruits Basket, where he basically had to learn to be okay with being alone. I don't know, I know Takaya wanted to make this a short, cutesy epilogue, but I feel like it had the potential to answer some important questions, as well as to show some really interesting new stories that come up. It was nice to see, though, how much Toru has influenced the next generation of Somas, where now they all work together to help someone going through a tough time. I'll give major props to the flashback with Yuki's son, though, after his dad tells him the truth about the Soma curse and that it broke before he was born in his troubled childhood. He then tells his dad he loves how happy his life is, where you can see Yuki break down with tears of joy that he's giving his son the childhood he never had. I thought that was just so beautiful, and I kind of wish Fruits Basket Another was like that, more of an anthology of the next generation, showing how each kid is living the life their parents never got to. Overall, Fruits Basket Another is cute, but I just don't think it has any material to make anything longer than, like, what, 30 minutes at most? Oyasumi Punpun by Inio Asano. While yes, Asano is currently creating an anime called Dead 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 Demons Dead Dead Destruction, some say this anime will be a foot in the door for introducing his work in anime, but I highly doubt that's the case. Oyasumi Punpun is an extremely surreal work that I think is hard to pull off in an anime format. There's narration, highly detailed character designs, and using the black and white coloring of the manga to its advantage to contrast the lighter and darker moments of Punpun's life as he gets older. While yes, the anime he's working on is doing a good job at adapting a simplistic version of his style, the highly detailed artwork of Punpun is for a reason, and it's to show the contrast of Punpun from everyone else. Okay, more like how he tries to feel like everyone is so complex and he's just a little burb guy that morphs into whatever as he grows older and tries so hard to be accepted and loved. I personally don't think Punpun has extremely dark imagery either. It's not like Innocent where bodies are getting ripped apart here, but it's more dark psychologically in exploring the really hard parts of growing up, as well as the very ugly side of mental illnesses such as depression. I mean, there's a reason so many neurodivergent people have used Oyasumi Punpun to describe their illnesses. I think animating Oyasumi Punpun would require an extremely skilled director, and while I'm not saying there isn't one in the industry right now, I just think that the level of skill would practically have to be Asano himself, and I think it's pretty clear that he's never been interested in adapting his works into anime. Despite Punpun's popularity and status as a cult classic, I'm gonna be honest that he's likely declined offers from studios to adapt his work. That said, I don't think all of his work is impossible. Despite its more smutty imagery, I do think A Girl on the Shore could be animated, but it's not nearly as beloved as Punpun, so I don't think it'd get anything more than a passion project someone at a studio was probably begging for that would never happen. Homunculus by Hideo Yamamoto. While the manga did receive a live-action movie, everyone agrees it was fucking awful and was way too rushed to properly tell this slow-burn story about narcissism, the darker side of human nature, and basically how even empathy can end up selfish in the wrong mindset. I am doing a video on this in more detail, so I highly recommend subscribing to check that out, but I still wanted to put it here. This manga isn't just slow burn, but features the kind of visuals that can only really work in a manga's perspective, on top of the really fantastic artwork that's borderline realistic with some characters. The other problem is the content itself isn't appropriate for most studios to want to adapt. A teenage girl gets assaulted, our main character loves to, taste himself, if you catch my drift. And of course, there's nudity up the wazoo. There is also a canonical trans character, or gender fluid, depending on the translation, and that's a subject we all know is very rare in anime to respectfully adapt, especially to just confirm. On top of that, this art style would be extremely hard to animate due to its semi-realistic style of the characters. Worst case scenario, the anime would end up looking like the Aku no Hana adaptation, and we all know that was uncanny as fucking hell. Best case, I guess Berserk 2016? I don't know how this is the best case, but anime studios have to seriously consider a manga's art style into their budget and if it's worth to adapt because of it. As an example, that's why Sailor Moon Crystal's first 2 seasons dropped the attempt at animating Naoko Takauchi's art style. It's just too expensive to animate her highly stylized and extremely vibrant art style without making it look ugly when episodes had extremely small budgets. I'm not saying all studios can't handle extremely detailed artwork. Just look at Baki as an example that it can be done, but it's not common either. Especially manga that dabble in surreal storytelling, where reality and imagination blur together, where you honestly don't know if something was fake or real, but in that moment it doesn't matter because of the symbolic storytelling. Overall, these manga are all fantastic works, and while it's sad some of them will likely never receive an anime adaptation, I think we all can agree that honestly, they don't need one. Some stories are told in the medium they are for a reason. Not always, but some. And all of these authors know how to utilize that format of a manga to its best advantage to create incredible and thought-provoking stories. Except for Its Basket Another. That one is just kinda mid. Anyway, you guys let me know down below what you think of this video. Are there any manga you want to see get an anime adaptation? Are there any I missed? As always, let me know down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching! If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're new. If any of you would like to help support my channel in any possible way, my Ko-fi page is down below in the description, along with all of my social media. For any subscribers, new or old, who'd like to help with video ideas, or maybe just want to talk about anime or something, I have a fan server linked down below. See you next time!